Good morning from Hobart. How's everyone? So I put the backdrop in from Hobart. It's sort of not too bad. Actually, on the Zoom one, it's actually a bit better. It's stability, but StreamYard, not sure. But that's what Hobart looks like, the waterfront. So nobody's seen it. Now they know what the part of the world that I come from looks like, or at least the waterfront. I work in a building all the way back there behind this one, further back that way. And I live further up somewhere there, so it's quite some distance from the mountain. So, yes. Anyway, let's get going. Oh, sounds like that's great. Send some over, Richard. Simply Human, good to see you. Chicken without the brisket. Or you could do the other one. I actually get pork rind, unflavoured pork rind. And Hello Kitty has got a sort of her own little thing, beaten egg, puts the meat or chicken or whatever, and then puts the rind on the outside, cooks it on both sides in a pan, and then basically puts it in the oven for oven baked. So very nice. And hi everyone, and don't forget to hit the like button as well. Robert, been experimenting with glycine in bone broth before bed for sleep. Sometimes it seems to work, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, look, glycine is like methionine. It's involved in the part of the methylation cycle. Actually, if you increase it, your body will actually increase it as well if you will synthesize it. It's not really necessary to supplement bone broth and stuff like that. It's okay when you come out of a fast, just to give those extra aminos that the body's going to use for collagen. But generally speaking, it's a bit of, when you look at the capacity for the body to, like a Swiss Army knife, to transcript enzymes to do a lot of that sort of stuff, it's less than necessary. The best thing for calmness and good sleep is actually taurine. So if you're going to supplement anything, I'd supplement with a bit of taurine in the evening, increase GABA, and actually calm and give you really good sleep. So, Roman, good morning. Good evening all as well. You must be in an evening location on the planet. Harry, floating in air, high above the city. Yes, that's it. Floating. I'm Harry's. I'm a little Hobart guru. Is that what you're saying? Floating above. Yes. These sort of background things. I don't know how it's coming across. I'm just mucking around with it. It seems to be not too well. It seems to be more stable than last time when I actually tried it. So let's just hope that it doesn't really go to shit. Anyway. Bart's got more complicated sort of backgrounds that he does it, but I'm still a bit of a novice when it comes to these things, to try and get them right and not really distort things. So, like throwing your hand in like that. Keep the hand down. Yes, hi, good to see you. Wish I could. It's done good. Yes, sounds good. Barbados, hello to you as well. Good to see you, mate. Always a pleasure. What happened? Didn't notifications go out today? It's not many of you here. It's really weird. Sometimes I get here and there's like 30 or 40 people waiting, and then all of a sudden, I came from Bart. G'day, Sheena. Nice to meet you. Yes, I've done a few collabs with Bart for a long time. We usually cross-promote each other. So he's got a lot of, videos that he's done also with me. I've done a few live streams with him. And I've done a few things with Pim. If you take a look at the playlist, you'll find a number of videos where I've collaborated with both of them on a number of different topics. So you may find those interesting. Check the playlists and some of my other stuff. Cecile, good to see you. Thanks for being in the Zoom meeting last night. That was good to see you there. Thanks for participating on and off, like some of the others, especially Richard, and a few others are here. Trouble as well. Thanks for the information. I've always wanted to try a bit extra taurine, but haven't got around and really researching it yet. Elliot Overton recommends it on his channel for neuroinflammation. Yep, very important. It does actually, the glycating factor, glycation of, I think my first or my second live stream, I actually talked about how important taurine is. I used it for a number of years because remember 11 years ago I had cardiovascular disease, and I used it for precisely that, to reduce inflammation in my body. And and over that course of years, I learned about a lot of the other benefits it has to all tissues, including the brain. Beta amyloid, really important to basically reduce glycation of beta amyloid, and reduce the sort of the entanglements that can happen with beta amyloid. It also reduces entanglements of beta amyloid, and together synergistically with choline sort of removes it. So it's really good stuff in that regard. But it also increases GABA. It really can calm people down. It's an osmolyte, balances your electrolytes. So if you eat more meat and get more, you will balance more of that sort of stuff. So it's really good and important. Anyway, yes, likewise, Richard. Multiple, so many. Your immune system, you've seen my T cell one on how important it is for your thymus and your frontline immunity against any virus. Taurine plays a big role in that as well. I just haven't done the video. So really important. I've been saying to people, vitamin D, taurine, and gargling, basically iodine and stuff like that for to keep the viral load down in you. And I've been saying that way back from 2019, so from the early days. You guys that have been around for a while know all about that. So species appropriate way. You don't see it in the tribal areas of the Maasais and all that. You see it in Nairobi where there's outbreaks, but you don't see the issues in those tribal areas because those people have good vitamin D status. So it can produce good stem cell activation from the bone marrow to produce, the T cells that are required, and then taurine sort of makes sure that the thymus works properly. So, and also reduces oxidative stress in the thymus, which means reduces senescence of T cells. So you've got more of a T cell pool to basically zap, anything, cancer cells, you name it, it zaps it. And it, let alone those, both vitamin D regulates the immune system largely. So, we've talked about that. I won't go into it again, but synergistically, they really work well. Thanks for being there last night, Trouble. And thanks for sort of participating. And thanks for the frivolities and the humor with Blinky. Yes, he's a bad boy, isn't he? God. I think he's hiding from me today. Maybe. Hi, Andy. Good to see you. I have a video for you next week. It's the second one on cancer. So that'll be covering a few things that are old, lost research that's been done in a whole lot of mammals in terms of the placenta and the cell proliferation, how it actually, the child, I think 56 days, just have to remind myself, read the actual, some of the stuff in that document. But you'll be very interested about some additional approaches to dealing with dealing with cancer. I hope you're actually also getting your vitamin D levels up. Remember, you got to get them up to 90 to 80 nanograms per deciliter. Very important to get them up to those very high levels for the gene expression and gene turning off and on of those 1,200 plus genes. Very important. So there'll be information that's been lost pretty much from the early part of the 20th century. So they'll be adding to that additional. So it'll be sort of part two, sort of to complete that series. There's a couple of other things that I'm looking into, but I'm not entirely 100% convinced. So, but they will be sort of like, they can be done on a separate thing as sort of maybes. If you're in a desperate state, you try anything. But I'm not that confident with that sort of other stuff. But the stuff that I'm actually going to present next week is really good stuff. So I think you'll enjoy it. G'day, Alex. Good to see you, mate. Must be late where you are. Yep, thanks, Harry. Can you recommend any reputable brands selling taurine? I don't know whether you can get the one. There's a good brand on iHerb, which is really clean. It's done by this company was started by vegetarians years ago, but they have really good manufacturing approaches. That no crap, no fillers, no junk. They really have good quality products. It's on iHerb if you tested it. It's a powder. Let's see if I can find it. I should bring it up. I'll find it and I'll put it in. I've got it in my sort of my list in that regard. So, but see if I can actually quickly. So I'm logged in. I just realised I'm logged out. That's probably quickly searching it. Yep, there it is. Natural Life. That's the one. I think did that come through or not? Yes, eventually did. Took its time. So that's the one that I usually recommend to people. It's available on iHerb at the moment, and it's no other ingredient in it. 100% pure taurine powder. So it's also in the free form amino acid. So it's nothing unbound with any other crap and all that. So it's good as a sulfur amino acid to be in that free form. It's when meat is denatured within the actual stomach by the low pH, it will basically will be as a free form, and it will go into the system and go into all tissue around. Primarily, will go into the liver. Will take a lot of it because of detoxification and all that, but other parts of the body will also take up and it's synthesized in the liver from methionine and cysteine, but not a lot. So you really need to be getting some in the diet from animal foods, or supplementation if you need additional stuff. Because sometimes, people have had, we haven't been on an ancestral diet, Robert, and you can have actually high levels of oxalate that you're actually dealing with, and that can actually deplete a lot of sulfur amino acids like methionine and like taurine. That can also have a indirect effect on your homocysteine levels as well. So there can be a lot of pathways that we can damage ourselves, so to speak, or and so we may need a bit of supplemental support in the interim as we're dealing with those issues, whatever they may be. Anyway, have you heard of Sam Bailey? No. And the fact that so-called virus has not been isolated, that's bullshit. It has. It's been also been sequenced. We know the genetics of it. That's just nonsense. I hear this all the time about the prolines, and even though they have a different folding of the prions, I hear this constantly, just people misinforming. Absolutely nothing to do. It's autoimmunity. It's basically reactivity. It's basically people having very low T lymphocytes to clear the stuff out, and then you've got this constant reactivity of low-grade effects, chronic effects happening in the body. God doesn't have any idea if he's talking that sort of nonsense. You can't actually even create a vaccine without isolating it, without basically sequencing They've got these fantastic sequences. They can take the whole human genome and actually sequence it or any animals in a couple of hours now. We're talking about technology that can do it very rapidly. How do you think they do all the genetic tests, 23andMe and all that? We've got sequences that can do fantastic stuff. We've got electron microscope. We can move little electrons, and create letters and stuff like that. It's nonsense to anybody that actually still thinks that. What we don't have is the capacity to create nano machines yet. It's probably a decade or two, probably 2 decades, maybe a bit more. It's too complicated because it may not even be possible. We don't know. And I'll tell you why. Because you, at that very low level, I mean, even in hard drives, they've actually had to change the orientation of the hard drive because there is sort of these electromagnetic sort of effects fields that are actually interacting and actually are pulling the electrons in one way or another. So it's really hard to store data. So you think you can actually make a nano machine that basically has, stuff like enzymes and other things, you're electrically neutral in your body and a lot of the fluids. You don't have that problem. But in electrical systems, hardwired stuff that are making from silicon and all that, it's a different kettle of fish when it comes to that. That's why they're trying to go to quantum computers. So it's maybe if they create quantum computers, they may be able to create machines at that stage. But with the current technology, even I don't think it's likely. And my field is, before I got into mapping, IT. I used to build computers way back, and I'd researched computer science. I'm pretty much very nerdy when it comes to computer science. So yeah, a lot of this nonsense that people are saying is just absolute junk. Don't waste your time with idiots like that. Yes. Just before sleep, yes. I thought in the Netherlands it'd be a bit on the late side. I'll see you in the next session, the evening one. So take care, mate. Yep, not a problem. I think you'll enjoy the next video. You're already on the path of dealing with a lot of these sort of things. I need to emphasize certain things about T cells, and I need to emphasize a number of other things, pathways with enzymes that are playing a critical role in cell proliferation. There's a lot of things. We need to basically attack it from multiple ends, so without saying too much at this stage, I enjoyed hanging out with Harry. I put Blinky back in the dungeon for a bit. Oh, that's why he's not around. Ah, okay. Did you give him a good whipping as well before you put him in the dungeon? I hope you did. He probably needs it. Did you? Oh, and as well, Trouble, did you leave him a bit of sand? He is a sand groper after all. Beef heart is equal amount of beef muscle meat, has more taurine. Yep, has more taurine, has more coenzyme Q10. Yep. I occasionally do buy hearts, and I will get them minced by the butcher and combine it with muscle meats. So I used to do that quite often in the past as I was dealing with my heart and all that. And then I started supplementing taurine. I found a good brand like the one on iHerb. So yeah, that changed the direction. But it's really important with a lot of things. Your immune system in these days. With people that have been forced to take Jabba the Hutt and may need to clear all those spikes out. They need to get their T lymphocytes really ramped up and working well to clear all that stuff, including the potential virus as well. So yes, go and check those videos on the T cells that I did. Very interesting if you haven't seen them yet. No, mate, it's not. There's a few issues in the when it comes to that, and a few nomenclature related issues, but no, it isn't. Oops, the iHerb one. Not a problem. What's the fundamental difference between quantum computers and non-quantum computers? Or maybe quantum is just a fancy word, or is it just it basically, that would take a long time to actually explain entanglement, a long time to explain qubits and how they are actually exchanged. So you'd have to go on actually see a video and see the difference. But one is what we call, when a standard computer comes in two forms. One is a Turing machine, which basically is a fancy way of saying a complex calculator, which uses basically ones and zeros, a binary code, to create symbols and its code at a base machine level. And then there's analog computers. Analog computers are like the first one was developed, we think, by Archimedes in ancient Greece. And that was basically with all these gears and stuff like that. And you can actually calculate a whole lot of things because the way you set the gears. And so it has like a very deterministic outcome in that way. They use it in artillery systems in the military to get precise computational settings for artillery devices and stuff like that. So it is used around the things, but yes. And on top of that, the only country that's actually developed also quantum computers in a silicon is at Sydney University in Australia. So where Australia's leading quantum computing in terms of silicon manifestations of that. So really interesting, but it would be a long explanation to go into a lot of the details. But I would recommend there are some videos online that actually explain how you can actually use qubits in quantum processing and quantum computing. But one uses a very different method than the other. One's a very discrete in a sense, and the other one can actually do multiple things simultaneously, is the sort of the most simplistic way of explaining it. That as well. And implementations also. What do you think about carnitine supplementation? Depends. If you're eating plenty of meat, you probably don't need it. Can be useful. Some people that are doing a lot of intense bodybuilding, a bit like creatine, intense bodybuilding, but then again, not as needed. But there is a sort of a synergy between taurine and creatine that can be used. But again, it depends. For the average person, probably not a requirement. If you're just eating plenty of meat, you're probably fine. It's probably people that are really into bodybuilding and want to sort of ramp up their improvements in cellular function, antioxidants, reducing oxidative stress or whatever, a whole lot of other factors. A lot of these aminos can play synergistic effects together, and people usually supplement these things to get those improvements in performance. A lot of it's anecdotes. There is a bit of research, but it usually is animal based. And yeah, there's a lot of question marks on all of it. I see a lot of aminos playing synergistic roles, and I only see certain things like where you really need them. If you've been on a species appropriate diet for a very long time, you probably don't need even, a vasodilator like L-citrulline, but it can be useful. A lot of us haven't been and still have some issues that we need to deal with, and a vasodilator like L-citrulline can be useful, but not necessarily if somebody's been on a species appropriate diet all their life. Again, taurine can be a similar thing, especially if you've actually had a lot of, health related issues. You may need, if you've got a shrunken thymus and you're older and you want to increase your thymus to avoid illness and pneumonia and stuff like that, because it does shrink. You don't get that in tribal people because they eat plenty of meat and maintain a good thymus for, T cell storage and production. But unfortunately, we don't. So you may need to supplement more in order to correct some of those things, to reduce the fibrotic tissue in your body. You sort of have to balance it also with a bit of choline, which you find in eggs and organ meats, because it does methylate any excess sulfurs, which can be a problem if you overdo it. So there's a sort of a diminishing returns at some point. And when I recommend certain high doses, I recommend them for a specific amount of time, no more. There may be cases where oxalate dumping and stuff like that, there may be a requirement for much higher amounts because it depletes a lot of those. So it depends on the circumstances for the person, how you actually use a lot of these sort of supplements. So if you don't require them, why waste your money is usually what I say. I'll leave it at that. Top secret. Mum's the word. Bruce, g'day, mate. Have you tried any carnivore keto recipes with eggs, high protein, white protein, to make carnivore bread buns? I made a pizza crust with pork, rinds, and ground. I haven't tried any bread type things with white protein. No, I haven't done something like that. Okay, people are making all sorts of things then. Okay, I mean, it's probably not. No, I haven't, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I may have to look into it sometime. Maybe like you make like a toasty thing of, and then yes, I could actually go. I could actually then find something. I actually put a bit of Vegemite, because I do like Vegemite. I know. Yeah, I know it's a plant. Don't give me a hard time about it. I'm an Australian, but I can still basically, make an egg thing and try that with a bit on a substitute. I use cheese at the moment, hard cheese, to do that. So that's my current substitute bread for a bit of Vegemite. But yes, yeah, I know some of the North American crowd go, "How do you consume that shit?" Yeah, I know. It's an acquired taste from childhood. G'day, mate. How's it going? Good to see you here. Yeah, we're sort of touching on different topics as usual. We had a lot of really interesting conversations. I was surprised there weren't more people from North America coming to my Zoom meetings. They are quite interesting. A lot of the people that turn up, we talk about a lot of things, and even Dom last night was actually showing us some stats from the UK, and we were looking at sort of mortality rates and stuff like that, and having a close encounter with Jabba the Hutt 25 in the first 25 days, and the difference levels. If you basically get the virus itself, is like a 4.6, was it 64 or 66? Can't remember now. Fold increase in sort of incidence. Yes, those deathly incidents. And then with the combined groups where they got it, they had a close encounter with Jabba. Yes, he's a wonderful fellow. You can really squash it. There was basically an increase of twofold compared to post 21 days. So that was interesting as well. So we did the calculations, looked at the data, and quite clearly shows that there are issues with this new technology of the earlier types, which don't use traditional methods. So, but when you actually get it, you get this more pronounced effect when you actually get the virus itself after being within the 21 days. It's a significant amount, 4.64 or 66 fold increase, nearly 5-fold increase. It's probably something that we've been talking about, the sort of cytokine storm effect. A lot of these people do have to, most people nowadays consume very little taurine in terms of meat. And it sort of explains I would say, the Japanese paradox, where they consume very high taurine diets, which is basically fish, which is higher than even ruminants. And so it sort of seems like it explains the Japanese paradox, even though they've got a very aged population. So very, very interesting in that regard. I don't care. Yes, I am, but I don't care. Actually, I have a different opinion. I do really like computers, and our modern civilization, without them, wouldn't be here. You'd be still working in some really awful conditions if we were basically back there before we had computer systems. So it has improved life, but on the other hand, it's also being misused. Like anything, dual purpose. You can actually use a knife to cut food, or you can use a knife to stab someone. So there's always a dual use of everything, unfortunately, in the world, and there will be always people that will be using something in different ways. Yes, he is. And there he is. Oops. Oh, very formal of you, Robert. Ah, yes, he's a very interesting chap. He's that European guy, not Tim Noakes in South Africa. We're talking about the other one. Oops. Anyway. Yeah. Well, with simple human, I may agree on some things. I've got my views on virology, and I've got my views on those sort of things, and I think we have difference of opinions on those things, and we'll simply have, and it's just that way. But my views are based in sound science. When it came to that technology, the mRNA technology, I looked at oncology where it was first used. I looked at the side effects. I looked at the issues that were being created, and I extrapolated from that. I didn't make up shit outside that. Other possibilities, the sun could explode tomorrow. There's all sorts of possibilities. I'm just talking, I'm being facetious, but all sorts of possibilities. But we need to be grounded in some level of evidence. If we're going to make statements or big statements, we need to back them up with very strong evidence. And unfortunately, many people don't have that. They are highly speculating. And even when we talk about the cytokine storms back then, we actually said quite clearly, there's a speculation on our side, the certain effects. Now we're seeing some data that is actually showing this 21-day issue, especially when you get it, it's nearly like a 5-fold increase. It magnifies the effect. Obviously, these people have got modern people today have got more compromised immune systems. They're vitamin D deficient, and they're also basically, they've got very poor T cell. And this is why the tribal people are not getting any. They're out in the sun and getting vitamin D. They are, through their bone marrow, their stem cells are actually producing more T cells. And taurine is also acts as an antioxidant, another role in taurine. Yes, that great food stuff in meat that actually also acts as an antioxidant and can actually reduce the amount of senescence of the T cells in your thymus. It also does remodeling. It takes about 7 years to remodel all organs. I've talked about this, about reducing fibrosis in different organs. Like I eliminated all my fibrosis with high dose of taurine in my heart. Reduced substantially from the glassing effect of my left lung, which has come down from severe, could have been cancerous, down to about 18%. I need to go back and do the other tests. I just haven't got around doing it. But pretty much those sort of things play a big role. And I know it actually affects the thymus. Now, this is why people after 65, their thymus actually start shrinking. Why? Because taurine drops off the show after 65, the biosynthesis from methionine and cysteine. So the only option you've got is to eat it. A lot of people that are in nursing homes, older people, don't. Their thymus shrinks, their ability to have enough T cell defense goes down. They're more susceptible. That's why they're dying left, right, and center. And that's why when you give them that, and when you give them a close encounter with Jabba the Hutt, plus you add the other component of actually getting it, it really magnifies things. And that's what that data, and that was a freedom of information. So it was quite interesting. Dom actually presented that from Ireland, which was really good. And we went through it, sort of trying to work out exactly what it was trying to say. So eventually we worked out what it was trying to say. So that was a really interesting. G'day, Lukey. I'll send you a link if you're interested. Yes. So buying bread from a man in Brussels, 6 foot, full of muscles, said, do you speak my language? Ah, yes, good song. Men at work. And just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. There you go. Or a egg Vegemite sandwich. Nice one, Robert. Oh, God, Marmite. Promoting their stuff from across the pond. Typical of Richard. Yeah, definitely not, Gary. Definitely not. But I still like it. I don't give a shit what people think. Everybody knows my email address if they want to contact me. I need to cycle through because I'm falling a bit behind. Hello everyone. I'm on a beach trip. Good for you. Okay, so you won't be making it. Fair enough, mate. Good to hear. Have fun. He's keeping up his levels. Not a problem, mate. You're welcome. As I said, my focus is on this channel to basically pull apart all the bullshit from the naturopaths and the MDs. And there's a lot of naturopathic bullshit as well that doesn't make sense physiologically. I always say to people, you make a claim, you back it up with science. If you can't back it up with experimental evidence, it's only speculation, and stated that. I've got no problem with people saying, I've got an opinion or a speculation or a hypothesis. I've even put one of my hypotheses up. I don't have any experimental proof, but I say it's a hypothesis of mine. There it is about deuterium and past indiscretions and potentially causing some issues in terms of plateauing and stuff like that. I threw it out there as a brain, thought. But at the end of the day, we really need to ground ourselves in good science, because otherwise you end up no different than a lot of the rationalists that do modeling and think that modeling or adjusting data, adjusting reality, which is what it is, that is somehow more truthful than something else. And I'm going, no, it isn't. You need to be able to sequence stuff. You need to be able to, look at them with an electron microscope, get its morphology, what it looks like. They've done all that. So I have no doubts in that regard. My issue is, do we need this version of Jabba the Hutt or any version of Jabba the Hutt when it comes to coronaviruses? It's much better to build up your T lymphocytes, get your vitamin D levels up like tribal people, get your basically taurine levels, eat a steak and get out in the sun, and pretty much improve that. But if you can't do that, at least up your taurine supplementation level with vitamin D, preferably from the sun. But if you can't get at that because you're locked up away in a nursing home, there are other options. But we need to basically be grounded on good experimental research, and the rest of it's just speculation, opinion, whatever else. So that's why me and Bart say there is no science for this or that or whatever, but we've got the N15, and that is hard baked into the collagen, so nobody can dispute that. So we've got to be very careful. Very easy to sort of succumb, as I say, to crack pottery. Very easy for any one of us. So I have to pull myself back as well and remind myself that, no, we don't know everything. We're not gods. Most of the time, half of the stuff most people say is just sheer opinion and speculation, if not more than half. I'm a stickler for scientific principle and integrity, and following the Bradford Hill criteria when it comes to epidemiology and a number of other important principles in science. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't. They really run nearly off the edge in many cases, and that annoys me. Don't get sand in your equipment. Well, Richard, he's not a sand groper like Blinky. Remember that. Yes, definitely better than Hobart. Well, it's actually a warm day today. It's not a bad day. I'm going to go for a bit of a walk up the hill and pop around to Dad's, have a quick coffee, and then he wants me, well, he's called me, he wants me to show me something. So I need to go over there and explain it to him and sort something out for him. Meet might. Yes. You could do something like that. Lovely stuff. It's just another one of those things that probably unnecessary for most people. Normalize your hormones, get your body to actually do a lot of that sort of stuff is much better. It has a place as a short-term biohack like everything, but I'm reluctant to, there are issues. Alpha-ketoglutarate as one example, which is important in the Krebs cycle. But if you give your body too much, what can happen? You can cause yourself a thiamine deficiency. That's not good, So we've got to be very careful with this sort of stuff. There is a time for specific supplement. Usually people come to me and actually say, I've got this condition, I've had this history, they give me a history background and all that, and I go, okay, we can use for short-term this, this, and this. I don't like long-term supplementation of anything, excluding taurine. I don't have a problem with it as long as it's accompanied with choline, and we usually get enough choline in our diet from eggs and organ meats and stuff like that. So we don't really have a problem there, unless you're one of those people, 4%, like this guy, that can't convert methionine to choline and then folate. Got it? Most people can. So it's a non-issue, even taurine, even at high doses. But with people with my genetics, which is anywhere between 2 and 4%, it could be an issue. So you've got to put the warning out. There's all that sort of stuff. But yes, try and get it mostly from food. It's going to be way more balanced. And if you're going to use something, justify it because there is a basis for it. Anyway, I had a burger with a bun, some fries, no seed oils through first time eating wheat in 6 months. You're a bad boy. That could just make sure you don't overdo it because, yes, I usually low dose vitamin E, Jarrow, and elastaxanthin. I usually recommend when people go on holidays because I do that as well. Because, yes, we're all bad. Look, we don't live in a constrained food environment like our ancestors, where we were locked into seasonality whether we liked it or not. We can escape seasonality. That's the problem for all of us. We've still got that fucking reptilian brain that still basically nags us. That looks nice, including the other stuff that's in a bikini. But yes, damn reptilian brain always gets you into trouble. Believe me. Can you see the Paul Saladino honey matrix picture that Luke made? Can we see? Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Where did I put it? Trying to remember what he called it. Is it in that folder or is it in another folder? I think there it is. There it is. Found it. Oops. Zoom in. Perfect. There it is. All for you, Robert. And I've even zoomed in to get a real good zoom in. Yes. One of the favourites. One of the favourites. Yes. People always enjoy that one. God, that was a while back. You still remember that? Good memory, mate. Yes, he did. He did. Look, unfortunately, as a lot of the actual virologists currently, there's a couple that, it seems when a virologist actually retires, they actually spill the beans about a lot of the companies. And when they're in the industry, they're very damn quiet because they don't want to lose their jobs. And most of them actually aren't taking the actual, those jab of the hut, options. So that should tell you something. And then the person who developed the mRNA technology is also quite against it. So that should tell you a lot of it. And when you look at the oncology stuff, I did the, should I take Jabba the Hutt type video, if you remember that one further back, and it covers that point about all the issues associated with that technology. So it doesn't surprise me that, but unfortunately, virologists today, you don't see them anywhere. The Prime Minister of Australia, in a more recent video interview in a pharmacy, basically had a psychologist as the expert, and a couple of other like statisticians or epidemiologists who basically are just medical epidemiologists but are not virologists. These people making all sorts of wild claims and speculations. It's appalling at what's happening and the advice that is getting. It's politically motivated, politically driven to a large extent, and with a new one, our friend Jabba the Omicron, he's a real good one that's being suppressed as well. He's really being suppressed, and he really, is trying to get out. Actually, I mean, there was a South African report out of South Africa, and this is the official South African authority saying that basically 5 days of a bit of a bit of a cold type symptoms like you would get from the common cold and nothing else. I think they should be unleashing this and having, Omicron parties around the place to basically get herd immunity very rapidly. But you think the authorities are going to do that? No, because of fucking cockwombles, and they want to basically have Jabba the Hutt, visiting you every 3 months. It's a good business model for their pharmaceutical mates. So it's in that way, you could say it keeps virologists in a job, but they could be doing other things as well. So let's be clear about that. But unfortunately, that's a corrupt side. The science may be fine, but the practitioners, as I said, like everything, there's dual purpose. You can take a knife, you can use it to do good things. You can take a knife, you can do bad things. Like anything, you can use a science to do good and bad. You can use science to make things that help people. You can use science that kill people. Plenty of weapons out there, bombs and whatever else. So, as I said, science is dual purpose. It depends on the practitioners, how they use it. And unfortunately, a lot of the practitioners nowadays are corrupted because of the mighty dollar and tend to use it in inappropriate ways, Gary. It's just the reality that we live in, unfortunately. But let's not succumb to pseudoscience to sort of dismiss them either, because that just dismisses us as crackpots. We need to basically be a bit smarter than that and say, yep, but these people are misusing and basically exploiting the fear in a population to censor and to bring a light version of authoritarianism into our lives. And that's unacceptable in a free society. And we need to push back on that level. So we need to be a bit smart about it, because we need to win people over the vast middle class. We're not going to win it with crackpot ideas or nonsense that we can't back up with good science. It's a waste of time, a waste of energy, actually. It just basically fuels the sort of us and them. Doesn't work in the long run. They are more, we're less. So ultimately, you're trying to win them. Any movement that grows, from the Vietnam movement or whatever movement it is, whether it's a political one, anti-war one, whatever, it always starts small, but it only grows because it embraces the rest of the community on sound stuff that you can actually bring them along, where you're not focused on. You're focused on things about freedom, things about this is overkill, gone too far, they're misrepresenting stuff and all that. So you're not claiming wild things that you can't support with any evidence. These things you can actually say, well, look, here's their stuff. Here's the sort of side effects. Here's this sort of stuff. Point to stuff that people can accept because it's been experimentally demonstrated or shown in case studies. People can't dispute that. That's a better approach, I find, in convincing people, because I can show them that and they go, okay, these people know about this sort of stuff. Why are they playing it down? There's a political motivation. Then they get it. They make the connection. I don't have to basically point out these issues with the way they approach things. They will realize, yeah, there's an issue here. Politicians are abusing their power, or these people, bureaucrats or whatever. So that's the best way of actually dealing with these sort of things, rather than sort of flights of fantasy that basically get us nowhere in the long run. They don't build movements, they destroy movements. And you end up like little Luddites on the side, ignored by history. We don't want that. Anyway, vegans always avoid answering the nitrogen isotope data. Yeah, exactly. But fruitarianism, skepticism, starchiverism. Yeah, look, they forget that starch that has a lot of compounds that are very toxic to the body, and there's no way you would have been able to eat tubers or any sort of types of food 1.5 million years ago before we had fire. So we have our speciations, the genus Homo actually emerged way earlier than that, a number of millions of years before that, as it evolved upwards, and the Homo erectus about 2.5 million years. So for 1 million years, we did not use fire to cook or anything. So basically, that is just a dead end, that option. And fruit is only seasonal. Without refrigeration, what else are you going to do for the other 10 months? Play with your fingers? Hope to survive until you see another fruit in 10 months' time? It's completely, bizarre thinking. These people have got no understanding or complete disconnect from nature. Bizarro at the extreme, to say the least. Their whole arguments are debunked so quickly, it's just a joke. It's like basically talking to an infant, oh, did you get that little baby? Fuck, it must be the brain fog. Can't say anything else. Yes. I'm a bit brutal in the way I respond to the goons. Don't give them an inch. They'll take a mile off you. And not stop talking until you need to put a fist through them. Well, oops. Let me pull that back. You dream of doing that. Just to my YouTube friends, just in case they get the wrong message. No violence, please. Yes. Pessimistic thoughts again. Yeah, exactly. You've only got yourself to blame. Now go and do a couple of Hail Marys and whip yourself and, all that sort of stuff, and you'll be fine after that. I always wanted to say that. God. Oops. Better disengage that because I need to be able to see the other stuff. Oops. And if you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Whole Rona is just Microsoft 2.0. Nice way of actually describing it. Yes, that fellow is very much a misanthropist. Very much an evil, demonic person, to say the least. He wants to interfere with the environment as well, put stuff in the atmosphere and all sorts of crazy stuff. This person is dangerous. These are the weirdos, luckily they're not the dominant part of the ruling classes at the moment, but they are becoming more powerful and encroaching on power far more than they used to in the past. And that's an issue in itself, to say the least. People report after abstaining from meeting particular side effects. Yes, it's called lectins. If you're going to do that sort of shit, take some lactoferrin to bind the shit. Yeah, that one of those lectins. My total testosterone was a bit down also. I got my cholesterol tested. Waste of time. I'm likely a lean mass hyperresponder, potentially. You do have some indigenous blood in you, and most indigenous people have a much higher level of ApoE 4.4, 4.3, and 4.2. In particular, 4.3 and 4.4 don't really have 4.2. That just happens later when you actually interact with people with 2.2s or 3.2s or 4.2s. Yeah, so I suspect, you probably are. Most are that have got those genes. Dave Feldman's a 4.3. He's actually admitted that, which is automatically he will uptake. He's got receptor sites that will uptake chylomicron remnants much faster, which means that he can engage the Randall cycle gradient at a much earlier stage. So that's another reason. And also, even if he's on a low carbohydrate state, the influx of energy happens much more rapidly. And so he will export that as VLDL much more rapidly and have more, LDL floating around after that. If you're basically got a 3,3 or a 2,2, your remnant chylomicron will be much slower in getting into the liver, which means you will have a much less amount. And also you'll have greater circulation of those sort of early bringers in of energy, which means also you'll be actually utilizing more free fatty acids as well, because you can't uptake chylomicrons as fast. So it's very, especially if you're in a lower carbohydrate state. If you're not in a lower carbohydrate state, you'll be using glucose and you'll be using less fat, because that is a protective mechanism that's actually evolved in some people. So that's the reason for it. So yes, hyperresponders will definitely always have higher for that reason, because they're uptaking with that. They've got the golden key, which basically gives them the big uptake. So that is it. Can't do much about it. Your genetics are your genetics. Great before. People usually that have 4-4 actually more better at dealing with viruses as well. So there's an advantage there, because more LDL in the system can actually deal with disease. So very important for pathology. Yes, exactly. Nothing like the kibble. Yes, great stuff, kibble. Yes. Snort something else. I'm just joking, but you know what I mean. If you want a high, an opiate-like effect, and less damaging to your gut as well. Definitely less damaging to your gut. Yes, exactly. Not good for your tight junctions, very much so. Yes. Oh, but he does have a lot of vitamin D, which helps with his tight junctions. So, yes, I think yes, these damn, I'm more concerned about the other passports. The restrictive passports. Yes. Where you have to have a close encounter with Jabba the Hutt before you can actually go anywhere. Harry, your thoughts on... You taught me to disregard reductionist thinking, like Dave Asprey. Exactly. I stopped listening to him years ago, but he started promoting 30+ supplements to become bulletproof ridiculous. Yeah. Yes, if you start seeing me selling crazy supplements and stuff like that, just unsubscribe and go away, because I would have lost the plot at that stage. Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. It's... Animal foods are great. I mean, if you want a multivitamin, organ meats. I mean, it's cheap, it's good, and it has a lot of other peptides and a whole lot of other components in there. Half of them we don't even fully understand, that we know actually can turn on certain genes and turn off certain genes. So we know it's doing something. We just don't understand the mechanisms and all that and what it actually is doing, because our science is still, in some regards, still quite primitive and very reductionist in nature, unfortunately. People still, they'll look at a biological pathway and then they'll extrapolate from that through speculation and, what you should be doing to support that, when the body works in a very synergistic interactions. So it's a very different thing. So that's why a lot of it's lost on these people. But it sells good products. Yeah, it definitely sells good products, reductionism. It's marvelous to sell anybody any sort of snake oil, or MD to sell you any species, let's say contraindicated sort of medication, or naturopaths to megadose you on for your whole life nearly. I've known people that have basically been megadosed and damaged severely from megadosing of a number of different supplements. Just crazy, the stuff out there that's happening. as if the body, needs these sort of mega dosing. There are times, as I said, with the B vitamins for 3 months to help with vitamin D to help restore a lot of the beneficial bacteria from, your appendix where you store your gut microbiome. These are the sort of things. The problem is people they want the magic pill for the rest of their life. You can use certain biohacks in a certain way, in a very restricted and controlled way, yes, and get certain effects. But, when you start just indiscriminately just throwing things in, you can create more issues than do good, in a sense. Yeah, so Paul Salad Neo, yes, very much so. Yes. Glycating factor. He's truly Mr. Glycation. I wish I was that talented with picture editing and computer. Yeah, he's pretty good. Old Luke, I'm pretty abysmal. You only have to look at the sort of my when I've got different videos, the sort of the background that I put and the sort of the general words and all that. It's very basic, not very colorful, and pretty shit. But I'm not very, while I'm very good at computers and stuff like that, when it comes to, sort of this desktop presentation stuff and all that, I'm not that great at it. I used to be a bit better than what I used to be as a youngster, but that was a long time ago. But graphic artist, I am not. You've got to be a bit of a graphic artist to be able to do that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I'll acknowledge where I'm piss weak in that regard, or very average, to say the least. Yeah. Yes, he is very much HD. Very much he is. Exactly. Yes, that guy. Yes. Very good fellow. One of those few people that basically tell it out as it is. Unfortunately, many others don't. There's a few, like even amongst the low carb doctors and carnivore doctors like Sean Baker and many others, there are some that have stepped out and have said this is bullshit and all that. But it's few and far between. And it's really, they're just scared of losing their jobs. They're scared of, and I can understand. Look, I don't criticize these people like a lot of other people try to demonize them. You don't know people's circumstances. They may have young children. They may have a lot of debts. They may be in very difficult. If they were to lose their job, they could end up destitute on the street. I don't want that from people. I can understand, in that regard, why it's difficult. I don't blame them because they are victims in this whole sorry story and an affair. I wish that some of them are a bit more adventurous and a bit more risk takers and a bit more willing to take at least to put something out there, even if it wasn't too controversial, at least to elucidate that they've gone a bit too far, to just put their head just slightly a bit out, not completely. But then again, I don't know people's circumstances. I can't criticize people that are in that difficult spot in life. So it's just, it's easy to criticize on the outside. So I tend not to criticize anyone in that regard. I just tell it as it is, what my opinion on this is, and also what my proof is. Provide the evidence of the oncology field and a number of other things and say, well, these are things that you can do to mitigate a lot of that sort of stuff. So even if you've actually taken those inappropriate things, really get your T cells up, to really try and clear out. Because the only things that will go inside a cell to remove any foreign proteins, and we know the spiky type, is basically T cells. Just because you increase, okay, you get something and you increase basically antibodies, they can't go inside a cell to do that cleanup work. You need T lymphocytes. This is why a lot of older people with poor thymus, shrinkage and lower T cell, in their system, usually are more susceptible to viruses and to pneumonia and all sorts of things. But if you maintain good T cell because of the sun and meat, yeah, you're good to go. It's like that old lady that was well over 100, 120 odd, I think Mary Ruddock said, and she was bouncing up and down and, out in the sun and, no dementia, and really robust and could take anything. That's what an ancestral diet will give you. The only thing that will kill you in that environment is an infection or a cut and bleed, where you bleed to death and stuff like that, or you're attacked by an animal and ripped to pieces like a lion or something. These sort of unfortunate things that happen in a very inhospitable environment, or very much more risky environment, in a sense that most of our ancestors lived in. But if you're basically, you can survive all that, you can live into a ripe old age still with all your marbles intact and your musculoskeletal structure in very good nick compared to other people. So you literally go very little decline, very low decline, very low decline, and eventually you can't get any more cell division. And at that point, you just go full senescent and you die. But we do this, rapid sort of decline over a number of decades, and with a lot of comorbidities and stuff like that, and and a bag full of drugs just to keep us going. Yeah, and a mess, an absolute mess, travesty. But yeah, that's the modern world. Anyway. Yes, he does. Does a very good job. Great humour. And I have to say, I do enjoy Ted's inputs on this subject matter. The true genius behind the Bart fellow. He actually admitted it today. I got him to admit it. Yes. Unfortunately, they are. Yes, the number of these people are. Yes, too many, and let's say they are very liberal with the truth. Yeah, it's unfortunate. We live in a world where this sort of craziness exists. Yes. Physiologists are the most important professionals for the social engineering. Oh, sorry, psychologists. Oh, yes, exactly. Yes, HT. Yes, they are. God, physiologists. No, psychologists. Yes, they are definitely. Maybe that's why the Prime Minister had one out in Australia. Yes, maybe. Yes, potentially. Yes, in that regard. Nikola Tesla called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot. Einstein means one stone, which means idiot. Funny, Einstein was. Yes. Anyway, many people who are in the science field have a lot of differing opinions on a lot of things. And, we have Nikola Tesla to thank for AC, electricity, which is dirty electricity, non-native EMFs. Had we kept the other stuff, which is the DC, is less problematic, and but much harder to get around. You need localized generators and all that, which would have been very inefficient. That's why the other method was taken up. So, yes, he has some. Nicholas had some interesting ideas on magnetism and stuff like that, and and electromagnetism and stuff like that. So, yes, that's for another day, another conversation. Not the car one. Yes, definitely hit the thummies up. Yeah, I said not the car one. I've actually been in one at a Tesla. My brother Shawnee's mum, she has a Tesla. She's quite wealthy, anyway. So drove me around in one. So has offered to drive me around again in that. It's very smooth. You're literally actually, as you're coming in, you take your foot off the accelerator and it just slows down on its own. Unless you're on a very steep hill, then you have to press slightly the brake, but it actually just decelerates on its own. So unless you're pressing the pedal, you're not getting the movement. So when you go into a corner, you have to press on the pedal to keep the momentum going, because otherwise it'll actually decelerate into the corner. Yeah, it's not like a I think they've, in some of the new ones, they may have an option to deactivate that. I'm not sure exactly, but she actually likes it because she actually enjoys that, just not having to, just taking the foot off the accelerator without having to press the brake now, and it just sort of decelerates, so she doesn't actually mind that at all in that regard. Says, oh, less effort. Once you get used to it, less effort in the driving. So interesting. And I mean, and I'm talking, she's not young either. She's, I think, nearly in her 80s now. So, yes. So she can do it. But she's always been a bit of a tech buff in that regard from a younger age. So, actually, years and years ago, she was selling computers even before I was, before she got into other things like real estate. But, yes, she was a very smart woman. Very business savvy as well. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So you're primarily, Thomas, you're primarily beef. Is that what you prioritize more? Mostly beef, but I eat oysters, turkey, mussels, pork, bone marrow, pate. I love pate, eggs, egg whites, seafood, shrimp, tuna. Yep, I usually eat all that sort of stuff myself. Yep, in many regards, but you prioritize more beef. Yeah, some people do. I mean, I tend to eat a bit more pork, and sometimes I have bouts of fish here and there, tuna, and some of the other orange roughy I usually buy, and a couple of other different fish types, hockey as well. So varied, snapper, trevally, and whiting as well, occasionally silver trevally. So I do vary my fish types, but I do consume other crustaceans and stuff like that. Mussels occasionally. I try to get mussels at least because they're very rich in a lot of minerals. Try and get mussels probably once a month into the diet, and oysters. I haven't had actually oysters for a while now. The last time was about a month ago. I don't know. I was at a time at a certain stage having them nearly once a week, just a 6-pack, and just raw. I should probably go and get some. I've neglected that side of just, it's just been because of all the restrictions and all this sort of stuff, and they haven't been, the supply's been all over the place, and I sort of neglected that whole side. But probably should. I probably should. Do you like? Oh, there's another one as well. Where is that one? Actually, I'll hold off from that. Raymond, I will do a video with some of my favorite themes, animation ones. I'll hold off on that, and I'll do actually a specific video for that. It'll be just laughs, having a couple of laughs and stuff like that. So, yes, in that regard, I think a lot of you will enjoy it. Anyway, what's simple human saying? Much of our understanding of the universe is polluted with atomism, quantum unicorn fantasy particles, not the basis of reality, only maths equations. Nature does not work with numbers. Yes, that would be a very long philosophical conversation, and a conversation on those sort of things. But that's for another day, mate. Come along to the Zoom sessions. We talk about a lot of these sort of things. There you can actually have long conversations with me and many others. It's much easier than live streams are just not suited for it. It's just quick answers to specific questions that people are asking. Doesn't work any other way. Otherwise, you end up half an hour trying to explain something or more, and you lose the entire stream. Not practical. Yes, it is. Very much so. They think all these modern fruit we have are now available years round rock. Back then as well. Yeah, exactly. That's enough. First of all, all domesticated modern creations. Some of them have even recent modern creations in the last couple of 100 years, and some of them are basically in the last, 60s odd, 50s, 60s, with the Green Revolution. It sort of really took off in the 60s, wouldn't it? But the research started a bit earlier. We're talking about nearly about 70 odd years, where hybridization has gone through the roof. Even wheat, traditional wheat. I mean, if you go back to Zea, had hardly any gluten. Then the later incarnations in the last couple of 100 years had more increased gluten, and they started preparing it in a slightly different way to reduce the gluten component. And now, after hybridization of the Green Revolution, it's gone through the roof, the amount of gluten in it, and a whole lot of other lectins have been increased. So, yeah, a very lot of problems have been created. And then a lot of things like glyphosate, overuse of antibiotics, and you name it, the assault on the body has been magnified many-fold and beyond the coping capacity of humans. And that's why humans are really deteriorating badly now, unfortunately. It's the reality. But it's just nonsense. One, it was basically seasonal, Even back in the 70s, when a lot of places around the world, refrigeration and energy to maintain big refrigeration systems was expensive. So a lot of it was seasonal because you just couldn't store it. You either had dry areas like silos and stuff like that. You stored grains and things like that. Grains you could get all year round because you could store them in a very dry place. They degraded, but you could still use them for wheat and stuff like that. But when it came to other things, yeah, they just don't last. And until we got modern, really sophisticated refrigeration, we've basically, it was seasonal. Go back to the 70s and 80s, even it was still very seasonal, most of the things. And it really, from the 90s onwards, the technology of refrigeration started becoming better. And also transport refrigeration systems and stuff like that, both on ships, planes, and vehicles, improved, and also the power requirements for those refrigeration systems improved as well and miniaturized. So that's the downside of the other side of technology, where it can be helpful in one way, and then it's got dual purpose, and it can be used to basically then support a kibble culture, because you can actually, and it's more profitable. There's better profit margins in stuff like that in kibble. But, you got to have better refrigeration for a lot of these things, and that's what exists now. So they can provide it 24/7, 365 days a year, unless it's a leap year. So that's the modern world for you. High deuterium food all year round with fructose and deuterium. You're not good to go. Yes. I think the Hats eat raw potatoes. I don't know if it helps them. They're certainly not getting glucose from the raw potato. Don't know. I know some of the populations now do eat some tubers. They supplement seasonally with tubers. I don't think raw, but cooked. And the Hudsons are one of those who supplement their diet with some foods of that sort, seasonal tubers, and also seasonal fruit and seasonal honey as well. They don't eat honey all year round. They actually pointed that out to Mary, that they only do it seasonally. So it's all these things are part of the seasonality that people did. Gaze-Randall cycle, you fatten up a bit, and then through the leaner winter months, when there's less pickings, you start getting ripped. As I said in my Zoom session, we've got it the wrong way around. We should be fattening up in the summer and actually leaning out in the winter, not eating more fat. You're supposed to get the fat off your body. That's how seasonality used to work. Even in an environment where you're engaging the Randall cycle and you're just not actually eating excess fat from an animal like we did before. But that's because were in a very cold climate, and these animals had a lot of subcutaneous fat to keep warm for insulation. So they had more, we consumed more because the other stuff didn't exist in those very cold periods. It's only in the interglacial periods where you get a bit of warmth and you can actually have a bit of seasonal sugar, here and there. But generally speaking, it's very limited in most cases. And even in the actual tropics, it's only 2 seasons for about 4 months of the year, more or less. Without refrigeration, what do you do for the rest of the year? 8 months. What? Wait for the next season to appear? Yeah, it's not going to happen. So the reality is that it's just nonsense, all that sort of stuff. But seasonality, yeah. Look, if you've got leaner animals compared to when it was colder, you've got to supplement that additional energy from somewhere. You've got to get it. They don't have a supermarket they can go, so they have to basically engage the Randall cycle to get that additional fat storage in them. Because in the past they would have just eaten more fat, the chylomicrons would have circulated around and eventually gone, okay, we've got excess amounts, we'll drop a bit of the adipose, and then we'll send a bit to the actual liver, so it can repackage it out as VLDL, just to make sure that there's enough circulating energy just in case we need it. That's how the system works. It's supposed to work. And if you've got low insulin, because you're in a low carbohydrate state, you don't engage the Randall cycle, you can access that fat when you're not eating. It's called hormone-sensitive lipase, releasing it as free fatty acid. When you start eating again, you stop and you take in those nutrients. You store some of them, you use some of them, and then you recirculate some of them. And then you basically, because most tribal people, no refrigeration, usually eat once a day or maybe have a snack in the early stages, So that's about it with some seasonal nuts. Sometimes like the sand people, the Kalahari, have those very like macadamia type, very fatty type nuts. So it's not complicated, this sort of stuff. But it basically means that if you really want to do it in a traditional way, the way your genes are designed, it's basically to have excess energy in the warmer periods, which also you've got the deuterium side of things, depleting effects of the sun. And then in the cooler periods or the drier periods when there's less, what you do is you basically consume your own fat primarily from off your body. And this is the seasonality of building up some fat stores and then releasing them and utilizing them in leaner times. It's how we worked. That's how it's designed. That's why we're designed the way we are. Store energy when there's a lot of it around, and basically use it from our bodies when there's not as much around. Unfortunately, we've got a thing called a supermarket, which is around, and a reptilian brain, which keeps on telling us there's more. There's more of that. There's more of that. Yes, there's more of the other stuff as well. But that's in the bikini. That's exciting as well to the reptilian brain. Anyway, I'm thinking of going steak only soon enough. I usually go on a fast just to feel better because I feel guilty. Had ice cream yesterday, so I'm going on a longer sort of fast today. I'm just going to have a coffee day with Dad, so that's about it. Ah, yes. Nothing like talking to a wall that doesn't reply or shows you a plant. Even worse. Yes, that sort of crazy stuff from that lunatic. Yes, exactly. That is a dangerous, dangerous person. But luckily, he's not the most politically, he doesn't have as much. There's others that have got more influence, luckily. So even though they do other nefarious things as part of the ruling elite, they're not as crazy as that guy. He's really beyond the pale on some issues. Yes, he's saving Mummy Earth. Oh, yes, from us evil humans. Ah, yes. Greatest crackpot ever. Greatest criminal ever, Ansel Keys. Yes. He just basically he's just lies. He just manipulate. He was a true first great manipulator of epidemiology. He just turned epidemiology into absolute excrement, in terms of the lies that man said. Absolute excrements. He should have been jailed. He was an absolute criminal, and he lived in Italy for most of his life, eating antipasto, which is meat, cured meats. What a joke. He's even caught by reporters that basically said, well, don't you advise something? He said, oh, my genetics, are much better. And I eat plenty of olive oil that helps. That's the olive oil sort of nonsense that he promoted. They loved him in the olive oil industry, even the people that diluted a lot of it. They had him in conferences all over the place. He constantly went to conferences to Greece. They loved him over there. And he used to get a lot of kickbacks and trips and all sorts of things. Yes, what a lying crackpot. He was a true industry mate. In the wrong way, not for us, but for his own interests. Ah, yes, mate. Very interesting stuff. I did a video on that with Pim. If you haven't watched it, Lukey, you should go to my playlist with Pim, chatting with Pim, and I actually have a video that I actually did with Pim in regards to ApoE. Very interesting, very insightful. I go into much more detail than what I've done. Well, a live stream you can't, because that was about well over an hour. I think an hour and a half. So it goes into quite deep explaining all these intricacies about the ApoE. Ah, yes, I was really exposed to a lot of the nonsense and statistical mischief making or bullshit, to be putting it blunt. Yeah, I was great. He's a good bloke. Good engineer. Has a sound mind, analytical mind. Doc will probably be freaking out. My triglycerides were the lowest I've ever seen them. I'm quite pleased. Exactly. That's what you want. You want low trigs. High trigs only come about, and low LDL only come about when you're consuming a kibble diet. So yeah, that's why they completely and utterly they lose the plot. I mean, my when I had cardiovascular disease, my was 1.7 at the hospital, at the Royal Hobart Hospital, when they actually measured it. So my trigs were just at that borderline sort of level. So they were considered, in their eyes, I would consider that high. They consider that normal. Anything over a 1, I consider high. But it was 1.7, but they consider that normal. It's like 2 and over that it starts becoming an issue. The thing that killed me wasn't high that it was basically the seed oils. Years and years of consuming seed oils, because I'd been convinced that it was the best stuff to use, because that's what the doctors were recommending. So I did a lot of mitochondrial damage. So in the last 7 years, I've been biohacking like mad, doing things to try and reverse all that mitochondrial damage from all the seed oils, the high deuterium. So yeah, it's been a long journey. Let's put it that way. So the funny thing is, when I look back, I don't look much different than what I did 15 odd years ago. I was just fatter and pastier and looked like shit. But some of my general characteristics haven't changed too much. But I did a lot of damage. It's taken me a long time to get here, where I'm at. Since my cardiovascular days, it's 11 years. So it's slightly over a decade. It's been a long bloody journey. Anybody thinks that you're going to get quick fixes with a magic pill, you're deluding yourself. You got to put in the effort and make drastic changes and eliminate the toxins. And it takes time, and you've got to be patient. It's just the reality, unfortunately. But I live in the real world, and other people live in the make-believe world of supplements and magic pills. Yes, they do. They do. Ah, yes, a true crackpot. G'day, Lily. I'm not sure what that connect link is or what it means. I'm 55. All these little acronym type things are confusing for me. Please use normal English. Turning a blind eye. Yes, very much so. Too many do, unfortunately, don't call these people out for what they are. Yes. Also, if I was stressful week, I had, but my thyroid levels are a bit wonky, lower T4 and higher TSH. Don't really feel off through. Okay. Yeah, well, small things do fluctuate. You've got to take multiple measurements and all that sort of stuff to really know whether there's anything. But generally, you're feeling better, and that's the key thing. There are going to be variations. I've seen people have variations, so I wouldn't be too concerned if they were, unless they were quite magnified. Yes. But email me if you got any concerns so I can look over the details. Ted's the best. Oh, yes, exactly. The true puppet master. He actually admitted it in his live stream, old Barty, you know. Yes. He a massive Freudian slip on his part. We've got Ted to be thankful for. Yes, very much so. Actually, my sister is a teacher and she gives me a fucking hard time on. She's got a much higher IQ than me, way smarter. She's just, has a tendency to believe in experts and stuff like that, and tends to basically also give me the shits when it comes to semantics or grammar or correctness and stuff like that. She points things like that out to me. Teacher. I feel like I'm in a schoolyard in a school class with her sometimes. Anyway, relationships with your rallies. I still love her, but yeah. Anyway, interesting. There's my Freudian slip for the day. Family issues. Nobody's got a perfect family, believe me. Yes. Yes, he did. Let's just push shitloads of non-native EMF all over the planet. We're doing it now. It's called 5G and 4G and whatever else. Yes. So do take some extra DHA. Eat some fish, extra fish. Very important to maintain because non-native EMF, especially blue light, tends to degrade the photonic energy of that spectrum, tends to degrade DHA. So, yes, another issue in the modern world that we live in, unfortunately. A last stream or a last for the new year, Eve, perhaps. Don't know. I haven't decided yet. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do. I actually thought I was having a shower this morning, and I was thinking about, do I do a live stream or do I do a Zoom thing for Christmas? That sort of thing. I haven't decided. So for me, it will be post Christmas, like the Sunday, after Christmas for Tasmania. But for the North America, it will be the evening for most of you guys. So you'll still be in the evening of Christmas. So I'm thinking about it. I haven't decided, whether to go one way or another. But I'm going to actually put, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to post right after this. I'll post basically a questionnaire, a community a post asking people, what do they want? Do they want a Zoom thing or do they want a Christmas live stream? So we'll play it by ear because I haven't decided yet in that regard. There's always the option the next day after, like the Monday, because it's still a public holiday, I believe. So that's another option. That'll be Sunday for North America. Haven't decided, because I've noticed that I'm not getting as many people on the live stream from the Zoom stream, a meeting from North America. It's just because in most cases, most of the beginning of it is people are, it's Friday, they're at their jobs, or they're out entertaining themselves. So it's really hard between the live streams, where do you slot it? It's not an easy thing. This, and I tend to get mostly people from Europe and Australasia, because it's basically on the Sunday for most of these people. Sorry, Saturday for most of these people. So it's not for most people. It's not actually one of the main 5 working days. So yeah, I'm still trying to work out the best way to sort of setting it all up. Yeah. Anyway, still thinking about it. In that regard, you don't know what you're missing. Anyway, in that regard, I've been eating conventional Brazilian pork, and it's quite delicious. The pigs get corn and soy, but they're fed well balanced. Meat is usually slightly red and somewhat dark. Yep. Yeah. Oh, look, as I said, most animals will basically, if they engage the Randall cycle, they'll build fat. That's fine. Pigs will eat anything anyway. Pigs, even conventionally raised pigs, will still have lower deuterium than even beef, and their fatty acid profile will not be substantially different than foraging pigs. I mean, I did show a video ages ago about that. So if you want to actually have smoked, raw smoke type, it's probably safer with foraging. So I usually get smoked pork and I'll eat that, but I wouldn't do it with conventional stuff. So it depends on how you're going to eat it, what you want. Obviously, the conventional stuff is going to have some lower micronutrients. It's not going to be as good, but it's not, it's not a deal breaker compared to kibble eating. If you were to basically say, here's a conventional piece of pork and here's a whole lot of kibble, what's healthier? Obviously, it's the pork, so, but you can go next level with the foraging pork and stuff like that. But we have to be quite honest and blunt about that. Yes, definitely hit the thummy up, that thummy up button. If you're a Vagoon, you can always do the other one as well. It still counts for the AI. My dear loving friend AI from Google, I just want to send that, a piece of warmth, heartily felt warmth from my heart for the AI. Anyway, we'll move on before he gets the wrong idea, or it gets the wrong idea. I find the pork in supermarket tastes really bad sometimes. Oh, that's the difference between... See, pork in North America will tend to be indoors, which means that it can't deplete deuterium. And the other thing is it's going to be indoors, and it's not going to have a good vitamin D status. Most of the pork in places like Brazil and many other parts, even the ones that are grain-fed, it's usually outdoors. So there are differences, advantages between North America pork compared to pork in some other parts of the world, even if it's, given some grains or whatever. So there can be a difference on both the deuterium side and on, but even the ones that are like in North America will still have lower deuterium. They'll have higher than the other pork, but they will have deuterium levels close to that, maybe a bit above beef, but close to that in that regard, even those most atrocious conditions. It's because the pork has very good detox pathways, very good pathways to reduce deuterium. So, even under the most worst conditions, it will still have lower deuterium, still, have a number, where if you were to give the same sort of stuff to a ruminant, you'd have far more bioaccumulation compared to the pork. So yeah. So if you're basically saying, I'm going to feed a cow the same shit as I'm feeding a pork, I'd eat the pork before I ate the cow, because the cow's going to be a hell of a lot in a much worse state. Doesn't have those capacities. Pigs are designed, though. I mean, the Polynesians used to have them on their ships and just feed them all sorts of junk carbohydrates and whatever else, and tubers and whatever else and stuff like that. They used to feed them whatever they had with them. They'll eat anything. It's just they're a rubbish machine. They always have been. So they've got very good capacity to deal with things. So that's why I think that, well, that's probably why they got a bad reputation in many parts of the world and considered as an unclean meat and stuff like that for those reasons. But it's a cultural thing. It's not really, people sort of didn't understand the capacity to detox that the pig has, the capacity to clear out deuterium that the pig has, a lot of advantages that they don't realize, but most longevity populations do consume pork more than beef, so it should tell you something. Lower deuterium. Obviously camels are even lower, but not all of us have access to camel meat. Some do, but very few. Yes, out in the sun. Definitely enjoy the sun. How do you know? Do you know much about medications for dementia and Alzheimer's? They're just garbage. I wouldn't use medications at all. No good at all. They've got more side effects and more problems. They're based on a lot of reductionist stuff. They've just failed. They've used all these medications. They've used medications to reduce beta amyloid. It's failed because, when you've got derangements in the system, trying to in a reductionist way affect one pathway or whatever, doesn't work. You've got to do a multi-prong. See, that's the advantage of basically something like taurine and choline. Choline has synergistic capacity to break down beta amyloid. Taurine has a more limited way of doing that, but also can actually reduce the glycating effect. So the actual, you don't get the entanglement. See, when you get glycation of the actual beta amyloid, it can actually sort of change its morphology. It become like a entangled. You get this really bad entanglement, this really dysfunctional protein folding that actually happens. And so taurine can actually go away and actually clear a lot of that away and reduce that happening. And also, so then it allows for the more degradation and removal of that excess stuff in the system. But it also has all these other effects. So it's actually dealing with all these other parts in the brain that are basically, you're lowering down a lot of the inflammatory sort of stuff because it acts as an antioxidant as well. So it's a synergy of things. That's the difference between an animal food and a drug, that an animal food that's actually working on all these different parts of the pathology, where a drug is not. So that's the reason why a lot of the populations around the world that has, and it's an osmolyte as well, because it's an osmolyte, it regulates intra and extracellular fluids, and that's another important thing. It actually will reduce the amount of calcium in the brain. So you can't get excess calcium toxicity in the brain, because as an osmolyte, it actually will move it out of those fluids. So another, it's complex. I'd have to sit here for half an hour explaining every single one. I've done plenty of videos, and I'm doing more to explain a lot of this sort of stuff when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that, how a lot of these things work. But if you've got a parent that's got issues and they don't eat a lot of meat, I would get them on a choline and also taurine supplement. Choline also increases TMAO, And I'm doing a video next week on TMAO, and some of you will end up supplementing TMAO or think about it. I won't recommend it, but you'll no longer view TMAO like you've viewed it up until now, because it also has a homeostatic effect on proteins. Very interesting stuff. So it'll blow your mind away, and it will also show why these people are such crackpots with their nonsense about TMAO. But anyway, that's for next week when that video comes out. So I'll let you ponder and wonder what is going to be in that is going to be so mind-blowing. Anyway, yes, it sort of helps with this stuff as well. Anyway, so nice to swim in the sea today. Ah, yes, nothing like a warm seawater, yes, and all the, the sort of the salt around your skin and all that. Yes, very much. The water here in Tassie is still a bit on the cool side, let's put it that way. Yes, probably not as bad as it was a month ago, where if you walked into the water, something would snap off. It was that cold, unless you're in a wetsuit. But yeah. G'day, Elizabeth. Hi, Ari. Nice view. I watched Bart's video about diabetes. He said insulin resistance was not pathological, actually in a kind of cell shield. Yep, has to do with it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's insulin resistance but insulin is basically a signaling. It's a hormone, but actually a signaling hormone. So, as I've did the video that's showing quite clearly that leucine is the one that actually drives muscle protein synthesis. Even in a fasted state, you add more leucine, you get, because a lot of people say, oh, you need carbs to push insulin up in order to get muscle protein synthesis, which is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You need leucine. And I actually demonstrate that. It's a signaling molecule. All it does is goes to the receptor site and goes, can you please take in more glucose into the cell? And if there's a Randall cycle activated and those receptor sites are downregulated, it basically, it amplifies the signal. Insulin resistance is an amplification of the signal, trying to force stuff into the cell. And eventually what it does, but also can amplify onto the adipose tissue, so forcing it into fat storage eventually. So that's what it is, an amplified signal, like saying, open up, in a sense. So, yeah, and it's a way of basically fattening up. So, but if you're doing it chronically, that's going to create a problem. But if you're doing it for, let's say, in the end of summer, the beginning of the fall, and you have a bit of fruit and fatty animals around and you're consuming all that, you're going to build up fat stores. You're going to become insulin resistant. You're going to engage the Randall cycle, and you're going to basically build up your fat stores more rapidly. So when the winter comes along and you've got no supermarket and you're out in the wilderness, you're basically going to oxidize the fat from those fat stores that are going to be released into your bloodstream as free fatty acids. The glycerol backbone to be used by glucagon to basically generate, demand-driven sugar. It's a perfect system. What's the worry? So that's the advantage of these systems. They work the way they should. When they're actually deranged or whatever else, it's a different story. But that's the derangement, because you're just putting shit down your throat continuously for the whole year round. And, you're causing these problems. And you're starving your cells. And you're fattening yourself up, constantly. So it's a crazy situation. But, it's what we do. And that's why some people eventually become morbidly obese or get diabetes very early, because they don't have the TOFIs, they don't have enough fat stores. And then things just go to haywire, cytokines and all sorts of shit coming out of their fat cells. It's just an absolute mess at that stage. So, yes, Bart's very correct. He understands the physiology. You're welcome, mate. So you're off. Yeah, enjoy yourself, Gary. Good to see you here, mate. Nick the Vagoon. Yeah, yes, one of our favourite Vagoonerized individuals on the YouTube here. was saying that some farmers were feeding pigs plastic. What? Well, they're getting carbon molecules. Is that it? God, he'll say a lot of things. I don't think farmers would do something as stupid as that and damage. I mean, we know that plastics that get into the environment, like fish and stuff like that, tend to not grow very well and tend to die. Sea wildlife and also birds that are close to the, especially coastal birds that can actually ingest quite a bit of plastic and end up starving to death. So I don't think farmers would deliberately try to basically something that they want to make a profit of, feed them things that actually, I mean, there could be in the feed that they're feeding them, there could be some microplastics or stuff like that. That's a possibility. I mean, there's a lot of contamination in the food supply nowadays than what there was in the past. That's a possibility. But that they would deliberately be feeding them plastic is complete and utter nonsense. But, what do you expect from a vagoonerized moron like Mick? My question is, if I'm in a faster state where my cells are lack of energy, you'll be releasing free fatty acid, my dear, and getting from your fat stores. And I am fat adapted. Is supposed I'll be using my own fat as energy? Yes, exactly, you will. So I'm still insulin resistant instead of sensitive. You won't be insulin resistant because you won't be signaling like mad because you're using fat to oxidize and create energy. So nope, you will not. You'll be sort of what they call insulin sensitive, but I don't like the terminology. And even insulin resistance is sort of, I just consider it an amplification of signaling of insulin, or a reduction in amplification being tempered down by glucagon in a fasted or in a low carbohydrate state. That's what's really happening. You're actually, because when we talk about insulin resistance or sensitivity and stuff like that, we're talking very reductionist terms. I like to talk in more holistic terms, how there is an interplay. Insulin will come down as a signaling molecule. You'll have an increase in glucagon slightly, or just, it'll be just slightly above, not that much, in terms of the insulin to glucagon of 1.3 when you're in a faster state. It'll be lower. Glucagon will be higher. It will be 0.8 in that regard. So unless you've got some major derangements, you should be tapping into your fat stores, and you're good to go pretty much. Hormone-sensitive lipase will go up and make sure that those fats are released into your body to be used and circulate around the body to get to your cells, which need that energy. It's basically the way our bodies are designed to work. Store it and then use it when we need it, when nothing else is coming in. You are, Joe. How are you, mate? Good to see you here. As musical as ever. I heard you were planning to putting the vax in the veggies using GMO. Oh, who told you that? It's a secret. Is it even possible? We're selling it to the vagoons. We haven't told them yet. They'll buy anything. Remember the other guy in New Zealand, 10 jabs. He basically jumped on it literally like a bed of jabs. So yes, so there is a market there to basically combine vagoonerized food with Jabba the Hutt. It's a new sort of marketing from the carnivore community. We're giving them what they want in a very good, efficient packaging sort of thing. We're keeping it under the envelope because people are going to think us as hypocrites and stuff like that. So we have to be a bit. How the hell did you hear about it? Well, back to reality. Stay well. I'm off to sleep. Yeah, I probably need some sleep as well. Back to reality. Or maybe I was asleep. Maybe I was in the twilight zone. You're welcome, mate. There's a fucking it's raining outside. Can you believe it? That's Hobart for you. 4 seasons in one bloody day. Oh, God. Exactly. I don't have to go on a holiday. I just have to stay in Tassie and enjoy 4 seasons in one day. Not a problem. See ya. So Elizabeth asks again, so if in that moment where I'm fat adapted and getting in my using your own fat, yep, if I eat carbs, could I activate Randall cycle? Yep. And you could also derange the the uptake of that energy. So lean because my cells will be full of their own. Yeah, your blood sugar will spike like mad because remember your glucagon is much higher, and it takes time for that to adjust. So your blood sugar will just spike up like mad. I've actually done that experiment. Believe me, it does happen. It takes a while to basically clear out of the system because you're basically in a highly fat adapted fat oxidation with demand driven sugar coming in, and then you basically throw something like that in and it just goes, insulin spikes through the roof and you nearly have a hypoglycemic, I feel very lightheaded. So don't do it, especially when you're spiking with quite a bit. Probably an experiment I shouldn't have actually tried. But anyway, I do crazy things now and then. It probably was a risky experiment at that as well. Tassie only has 3 seasons. You cannot call that a summer. Good point. Okay, winter, light winter, and mild winter. Some people call it, other names, but yes, it's not that bad. Could be worse. We could be down at Macquarie Island, I'm freezing my butt off with the penguins, my little friends. Yes, the evil penguin down in the south. Yes. Exactly. So it could be far, far worse. I can't believe it's 2 hours and I'm at the bottom of the actual stream. So I'm going for another half an hour until 1 o'clock, and then I'm buggering off because I have to go for my walk and then pop in at around a bit after 2-ish to the old man's place. So Dad's expecting me around about that time to have coffee with him, and we will gossip a bit and, things like that, and then I will come around for the evening show. So yes, that's the drill for the time being. Well, that's the program anyway, so we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, but it's a bit of a strange sort of situation. It's a bit more windier than it used to be sometimes a few years back. Global warming. What a nonsense. Yeah, but you'll hear them on the bandwagon eventually. At some point they'll realize that it's going through these cycles, and they'll go, "Oh, it's a new global catastrophe, global cooling. We're gonna all freeze to death." Yeah. Oh God, we heard that back in the 70s, didn't we? It never ends with these people. It never fucking ends with these people. They just jump on one bandwagon or another rather than accepting there's a seasonality, and it takes a very fucking long time of thousands of years to get massive changes. And temperature always precedes carbon dioxide or anything. Carbon dioxide actually is massive storage in the oceans. And when you heat the oceans, they actually release more carbon dioxide. So when the sun really ramps up, yes, then you'll know the release levels will be way higher than what they are today, whether humans are pumping it out or not. So it's just a joke. You just have to look historically, go back. So yeah, it's temperature precedes releases of that greenhouse gas. Yes, it's crazy stuff. So it's just an association, but you know what they're like. Yes, it does. It is a greenhouse gas. It does have an effect, but it's a very minor compared to the other ones. Compared to things like clouds, things like, sort of water vapor and stuff like that. The other ones, carbon and methane cycle pretty much tend to clear out of the system. We know, I remember I did that video on methane. Yeah, it's just crazy sort of stuff, that the things that we hear nowadays. But anyway, what can you say? It's a weird and wacky world. Here's a tricky question. How do you broach the subject of treating a similar heart issue that you had with someone following the standard advice? That's a different one. Yes. Me too. I love the stuff. I think it's great. If you want to grow things, you need carbon dioxide. Fantastic stuff. How do you broach it? It's a difficult one. That is a really difficult question to answer, because you've got an entire mindset, Scotty, that's out there that basically believes in the audio myth and all these other things. And how do you do that? I think the only way you can do that is basically pulling apart those myths. There's no really easy way, and actually pointing out that, in the past we consumed more animal foods, and you've got populations like the Inuit and all that, and you can actually see, when they move to Nairobi and they're having mixed diets and carbohydrates and all that, they tend to have more health issues compared to those people living in the tribal areas consuming just meat and some dairy. So the Inuit didn't have a word for things like cancer and cardiovascular disease or stroke or anything like that. They have to use English words for those things. It tells you something that it just didn't exist. So it's just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff in that regard. So yeah. Well, carbon dioxide is good for growing plants, greening the planet, and we've actually seen that. Even that NASA have got stuff out there. One other thing I wanted to say to Scotty, or send them to my channel, and somebody that did have cardiovascular disease 11 years ago, and I will tell them how to basically avoid that sort of stuff. I do also need to make that video explaining a lot of that sort of stuff, so I will do it at some point. Anyway, going back to this one, reviving yes, and with the solar minimum, yep, we should be revving up our engines as much as possible. If it ever did anything, we need heat. Yes, you're not going to get much, You really, in order to get any, and this is in a closed system, we're in an open system. In a closed system, you have to get the amplification of like temperature to get 1 degree above. This is in a closed system, okay? This is what physicists call a closed system. We're an open system. You need to actually double each time the carbon content in order to raise by 1 degree the temperature. Got it? So if we want to raise it where, from the means temperature now to another degree up, we need to go from 400 parts per million to 800 parts per million, and then 1600 parts per million. Not, another 400, but from 800, doubling it then to get to 2 degrees above. So to get up to the 3 degrees, you'd have to go a number of fold. You would have to have enough number of industrial revolutions to get to that level. It's not going to happen. That's how nonsensical is this sort of, it's going to be 3 degrees and we're all going to die. That sort of bullshit. Absolute excrement, But what it does do, it's great for plant growth, for life. Remember a thing called the Cambrian explosion? And when the tectonic plates started moving and breaking up and all that and releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide, and the planet was in such a position around the sun that there was much stronger solar radiation intensity, which actually released even more carbon dioxide from the oceans. We got up to 7,100 parts per million. And at that level, guess what happened? an explosion of life 3.5 billion years ago, the biggest explosion of life ever. Fantastic stuff. That's what happened. So it proceeded before, the temperature was increasing and releasing. That's the other myth. When you increase the temperature, water absorbs more carbon dioxide when it's colder, not when it's hotter. That's another myth. One myth after another. And basically it'll release more. And that's why it was a biggest explosion in life on the planet at the time. So you drop below 180 parts per million, you struggle to maintain life on the planet. And if you go to 150 parts per million, you're back to snowball Earth. That means an environment where it's just the whole planet is basically ice. So, yes, careful what you wish. Unless you're a nutcase that wants to take CO2 to zero, there are nutcases out there. They've got no idea. They're just absolute lunatics. Somebody should lock them up in an asylum. They're just really off the planet. They've got no idea what they're talking about. Yes. But yes, I would say yes, revving up, adding more carbon dioxide would be the best thing you can do for all life on the planet. All life and other animals and other species and plants and all that will love you for it. It's the best thing you can do. The most environmental thing you can do is to release more CO2. The more, the better. If you're a true environmentalist that love nature, you really need to ramp up your CO2 production and release into the atmosphere. You should just burn things just for the hell of it, just to add more. If you're a true environmentalist, you should have basically CO2 parties. Simple as that. So, yes. Anyway. Yes, nothing like it. I mean, they pump the stuff into hothouses to increase yield production. It's been well known. Yes, you want to grow plants? I mean, even NASA's got a map, the greening of the world as the CO2 goes up. Fantastic stuff. Last time I asked about the stupid idea about metabolic flexibility, I was wondering if it had to do with the idea that if I use my own fat, then your body won't know how to use carbs. No, nothing like that. Body knows how to use carbs, glucose, knows how to use basically fructose by turning it into fat. It uses a bit of fructose for glycosylation and a few other things, and in some of the tissues, especially in your gonads and stuff like that. Yes, but I wouldn't get too concerned about. It's all another one of those buzzwords that all these so-called fake gurus talk about. Yes, it's laughable. Yes, it's because they don't understand the Randall cycle. They don't understand all this sort of stuff, and they just make up shit, nonsensical shit, unfortunately. He is from Eastern Europe, 50 years old. I mentioned to his wife that he needs to look into using things like taurine, etc. My wife went off her nuts at me after her. The bloke's wife, friends left. Okay. Oops. Yeah, I know. You got to move slowly with these things, Scotty. It's just, yeah, I know. Yes, unfortunately, it takes a while for people to pick up. I go very slow nowadays because otherwise you scare people off. You end up with very few friends. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is working on a rocket tech that will use the atmospheric carbon dioxide to fuel itself. I heard something about that. I just don't know how it would work. To be honest, I don't know how it would work because, even in an aerospike engine, anybody understands aerospike engines, they can actually be, variable sort of their chamber in order to basically work in thinner atmospheres. As you go up, the atmosphere thins out. So even in an aerospike, I don't know how that would actually work Interesting. I've heard about it, but I haven't looked into it to understand the engineering principles. So yeah, but I would say stop taking stuff that belongs to us, the humanity that is. Get your own. What a hero. Anti-human destroyers of the world. Exactly. Unfortunately, there's too many of them, Fapnado. Too many of them, unfortunately. They're coming out of the woodworks. It's weird how the crazies have literally taken over. The attitudes, the Jabba the Hutt madness, and the sort of lockdown madness, and all this sort of stuff. It's all these loonies out there that really, years ago you would say, don't slap on all these chemicals on your hands and all that, because you're going to create a lot of issues, skin issues and stuff like that. And all these antibiotics are really going to cause a lot of related issues in terms of, creating more virulent type of bacteria on your skin and potentially inside you and all that. What have we got now? Massive use of antiseptic type lotions and all sorts of things. It's just gone mad. The world's gone mad in that regard. It's just literally the loonies have taken over. G'day, Shell. You're late, my dear. You're late. And where were you from the Zoom? You didn't turn up at the Zoom thing. I was expecting you to turn up. Anyway, there's always potentially next week. I'll be putting out a community post to see whether people want to do a live stream on the Sunday or a Zoom thing. It'll be interesting. I think I know what's going to win, but anyway, I may have to do it the next day. Yes, we'll see how that plays out. It's still bloody raining out there. God, I'll have to use a raincoat to get to the old man and go for my walk. Oh, well. Strange things. Yes, we have 4 seasons in Tasmania. I was told that we only have 3 because we never get summer by Scotty. But it's probably a bit of truth in that. But, what is summer for some people is, winter for others. We have a different perspective on that. Being a Tasmanian, I have to support Tasmania and say, you are wrong, Scotty. We have 4 seasons. They're very different compared to other places in the world. Yes. I did pop to the Zoom chat and left a message. Had to work. Fair enough. Look, I was popping in and out, and I had different times. I got caught up. I was at a sort of boutique coffee shop, and the guy, because my brother Sean does a lot of the, supports a lot of the coffee shops. Has a repair outlet and servicing stuff and for the coffee industry down here. So we were basically with one of his clients and sitting there tasting out different coffees and stuff like that. So we did still pay for some of them, but he did give us a few freebies, and he had a whole lot of different coffees. I actually tried, and he actually filters it. It's a cold, no milk, no nothing. It's just cold, dark coffee, but in different blends. And he had this Ethiopian one that was really nice, chilled. So because it was quite warm yesterday, we had a very warm day, and it's these really nice cold coffees. I did actually post it on my Facebook, because you may have seen it pop up. So it was really interesting in that regard. So I actually like it. I'm going to take Dad down there and actually get Dad to check it out as well. I think because Dad likes coffees, and I think I may even ask Ling. She may want to come along as well. That's Hello Kitty, whether she wants to. So she's a bit of a coffee buff as well in that regard. I'll come back to you, Elizabeth. I'm just going to go quickly through here, these ones, and then I'll go back to Elizabeth. Oh, I do need to cover this one. Nope, it isn't summer. I've been to Tassie for the hottest weeks on record, 2009. Nice. Mild Queensland day it was. That's in your personal opinion, Scotty, in your personal opinion. As a Tasmanian, I will just reject that and ignore that completely. I will consider that as a North Queenslander bigoted statement from the pineapple asshole of the world. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in. Did that annoy you? Hope it did. He probably likes pineapples, is the only problem. Probably not an insult in his language. Elizabeth is asking, I asked you that because last time I ate carbs and was when I fat adapted after breaking my fast. I thought I was insulin sensitive, but I feel like crap. Exactly. So it was because Randall Solomon not no, it was basically because you would have shot up your insulin like mad, and because the insulin sensitivity basically means that you will respond severely when you actually take in sugar, especially that amount, and when you've been and basically that will be shuttled away, and you'll end up with a hypoglycemic shock, and that's why you felt like crap, because your blood sugar would have been insulin would have pulled it away because it was so high, and the machinery has been down regulated because you're fat adapted. Those enzymatic pathways to deal with that sugar have been down regulated, so the body needs to get rid of it because it's toxic if it stays in the bloodstream for a very long time. So it will suppress it quickly, and because high insulin also suppressing it, and you can't access your fat anymore as energy, what happens? You run out of energy, my dear, and you feel like crap. I did that experiment as well, and I nearly fainted. I felt, a bit, ooh, I feel a bit dizzy. Yes, don't do that again. Especially after a long fast. God almighty, you always should break your fast. This is what happens with, refeeding syndrome. That's how people die. They fast for a very long time, or, anorexic or whatever, and then they refeed, and they can actually, and if they eat carbs, they have this spike, massive hyper, they can actually run out of energy and actually die. Very dangerous, my dear. Don't do it. And I was an idiot for doing it myself, experimenting with smaller amounts, but still not a good thing. Believe me, should always break your fast with some fat and some protein. Like a bone broth is perfect for fast breaking. That's what I usually just have a broth, and then I'll have some meat later on. So that's how I do it. Not with sugar. We don't want to basically really derange your signaling in your body. Yes. And insulin suppressing, spiking like mad, and lowering your blood sugar to such levels where you can't access energy anymore. Not a good thing, my dear. Not a good thing. That's why you felt like crap. Yes. And you do have peripheral resistance. So you can't, because you're down regulated your GLUT4 receptor, you're up regulated your CD36, which is taking in fats to oxidize, and then all of a sudden you've just spiked your insulin and cut off your free fatty acids coming out of your adipose tissue. So what do you think is going to happen? You've suppressed your energy from the small amount of glucose you ate, and your receptor sites are down regulated in your cells. So where you're going to get energy, you're going to start starving and feeling like crap. It's exactly what you did. Do not break ever, ever, ever fasts, or long fasts in particular will definitely kill you. Refeeding syndrome from carbohydrates. Do not do that. Very, very dangerous. Yes. Nope, it isn't. Yes, that was the thing. I disagree with that comment completely. Pineapple on pizza, nice. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. In the old days when I used to have what is it, the Hawaiian pizza, which is basically pineapple and ham. I used to love that. So yeah, I heard Pim saying, or was it? Yeah, she's sort of a few others, but what do they know? Traditionalists like yourself, Scotty, you understand that. Back in those days, Hawaiian pizza was the main pizza game. God, sort of shows our age as well. Doesn't look like you do much on Facebook. No, I don't. I haven't done things for ages. A lot of the actual images are in the days before I was basically, I was slightly fatter then, and I was slightly different in the old Facebook images that I've got there. So they're quite old images. I haven't posted anything. The most stuff that I post, so all my images there of me, mirror, and that are all bloody old years back. All the new stuff that I post is primarily like, the social media, like my YouTube stuff, Bart's YouTube stuff, Pim's, some other stuff that I find interesting here and there, just sharing stuff amongst people that follow me, primarily relatives, family and relatives and stuff like that. But no, most of the images are quite old. I'll probably need to update at some point, but it's, I've sort of dropped off the Facebook in terms of putting stuff up of that sort of personal nature. I've used it more now as a platform just to put out material, social media material out to my relatives and friends. So that's what I use it primarily for nowadays. So, occasionally I use with my brother when I find something, or he does find something, like with the new self-testing kits for vitamin D. I've ordered 4 from Europe, so he'll message me and say, "Oh, did you see this one? I found this one." I say, "Great, I'll check it out." And I'm going to do a test to see how accurate it is. And so once I'm convinced it's pretty accurate, then I'm going to promote it as something. It's a French company. I actually had to backtrack to make sure it wasn't a scam. So I backtracked. It's a French company that actually has a British website that it actually sells out from Britain. So the storehouse and production facilities are in Britain, but the parent company is in France. Probably for tax reasons. I don't know exactly. They may have another entity somewhere else. It's just the way they're set up. Some sort of vertical integration. But but I've bought 4 kits, 1 for Dad, 1 for me, and 2 for later ones to sort of do additional tests. But the first one will be to validate. So I'm going to get my doctor to basically send me to do a vitamin D test. I think I can convince him. I do get on very well with him. So because I'm on first name, we used to play cards, so I'm, a bit friendly. So I'll ask Andrew and say, well, send me through, I'll get that, and then basically do the test. So when I get out after giving blood to the people doing the vitamin D test, I'll go into the toilets. I'll have my backpack with me with a kit. I'll immediately at the same time do the test and then compare once I get the results back, to do a comparison between the two to see how accurate the two are. And if it's fairly close accurate or just very minor, then it's probably something that we can use, that people can buy. It's $27 Australian. I don't know what it will translate in other currencies. It's probably about 25 or 24 US dollars. So it's quite cheap as an option to be able to not have to be hassled by your doctor. I know in Britain it's very hard to basically get the doctor to actually write one up for you to go and get a test unless there's a specific health reason. So yeah, I'm hoping to be able to, anyway, stay tuned for that one. So once I have more, and that'll be probably February, but before I really have, I should get in January. Maybe I can get into late January or early February to get the test done, and then I can do the comparison. So early next year, I'll be able to provide some info back to people to consider other options for testing. So anyway, move on, Harry, move on. It's nearly 1 o'clock. Haha, I'm watching you break my fast and eating organ meats, hamburgers, obviously without bread, just meat. Exactly. I used to basically break my fast with that sort of stuff. Nowadays, I just eat meat. I'll have a steak. I'll have burgers. Just the patties and stuff like that. And I'll do a 3-day fast, and I'll just basically cook up some bacon and some ham, some patties, some beef patties, and have those. So, I don't have any problems. Don't have any stomach issues. No, nothing. Everything works perfectly. So, yeah, it's probably people that have done it for many years and it's more recent, you're late. And stuff like that, yes. Where the hell have you been? Yes, hello, Kitty. Is late as normal, dear? We slept in, did we? Or did the actual rain wake you up? Lazy bones. Simland suggests that taking during training amino acids is not catabolism. I thought when you are fat adapted, it would not happen during a training. I don't. I wouldn't bother at all. I usually, if I'm going to train, I'd train in a fasted state. And if I'm going to take anything, it would be basically something like, an L-citrulline for vasodilation, which is, like half an hour before I do any training. I'll do an L-citrulline, and that's about it. And creatine. But usually I creatine load in a different time slot in the day. So, but no. But I haven't been doing any training recently. I've just been spiking myself with high leucine to see to see whether I can actually, and I've actually noticed sort of slightly improvements in not bad for a 55-year-old, but anyway, slightly improvements maintaining just from the leucine. I'm experimenting to see whether certain supplementation can be used, taurine as an amino transporter, to enhance plant-based aminos to come in, plus add leucine in at 6 grams to help older people who in nursing homes and stuff like that, people that have got parents and stuff, to try and help them, give them solutions to help them out. So yes, you got to try and help people some way, because some people are just reluctant to change their ways. So it's easier to sell them on a supplement, the magic pill. Give them the magic pill, they'll love you forever. Yes. Oh, you did. You should have gone earlier and invited me. We're going to have a conversation about this. Do you realize? Yes. You're not a good team player, are you? Oh, didn't he turn up? Oh, shit. I thought he'd turn up before Christmas. Oh, crappy. That's crappy. Because, yeah, that's what I forgot. I forgot all about it. I was thinking of actually walking down, because that's why I wanted to leave at 1 o'clock, just in case. What time do they close? I forget what time. I thought, is it 1 or 2? Is it 2 o'clock still or not? But if he's not there, it's a waste of time. He wasn't there. Okay. Oh, fuck it. Looking forward to getting some cured stuff from him, some smoked bacon and stuff like that. Oh, well. Shit happens next year. What was that? Well, the farmer's market will be on. Oh, will it? Oh, fantastic. Make an appointment with me. We need to. Maybe he'll turn up on that. Oh, 1 p.m. Okay. Let's shut down now. Okay. But got some duck fat from Woolies. Okay. Oh, they bring some in. I checked last. What was it, on Thursday or Wednesday? Can't remember now. And I checked and they didn't have any duck. This is in the city. Okay, I'll have to drop in and grab some. I love duck fat. It's really good for cooking. The French know. Yes, I'm really good at that. Thank you. We'll definitely do that part. Definitely. Fair enough. Yeah, I can. What about lunchtime? When do you usually have your lunch break? At 12 or 1? I usually have mine at 1, but I'm not at work, obviously. So, okay. Yep, gotcha. Yeah, I've been going in there a couple of times asking whether they had any French duck fat, and it's just been, annoying. I think one of them said that it was maybe in a container that came from France, that it was still on the waterfront in Melbourne, and that it was delayed there. But yeah, had no idea when it was going to get to Tassie. But good, great. I'll have to pop in and get some. Good reason to go down that way. Anyway. Oh, you stay indoors. We'll have a private conversation in regards to that. Because I can't tease you online. I'll upset you. Yeah. Anyway, so I will leave it there. We're at the end of the thing. Yes, it is. Yes, but it's well worth it. It's good stuff. I better get down there before any of my subs go down there and actually buy it up. Yeah, she's an indoor kitty. Comes to the windows sometimes, and it gives me a filthy look when I when I tease her. Devox. Yes. But you think all fat's sexy. We have to have a conversation about that. Yeah, thanks guys for being here. Appreciate it. There is the other live stream in about 5 hours from now. So yes. And the background didn't actually held out pretty well, better than I actually thought. I thought it would basically be a bit shitty because the previous time I had to adjust it slightly differently. It didn't work, and now it's actually worked. I just want to try it with other background images and see how that plays around. I'm just having a little fun at the moment in that regard. But yep. Anyway, thanks for being here. If you haven't hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, why the hell not? This channel's got a lot of interesting information that could help you improve your life or your family's life. I made it get up for the next show. Love the background. Yeah, that's actually the waterfront down in Hobart. Yeah, it's the actual waterfront. So this is where the Sydney to Hobart yacht race finishes, and they usually, when it does finish, it's full of yachts, especially in the area to there. Sort of my fingers coming, in that sort of area, and some of the other yachts go into the sort of other area. No, finger that way. You get a few in there, but not as many. It's primarily in the other parts. This part of that part of the marina has most of them, and it actually goes further out. It's larger than you can see there. So I think my mate Pete, he's gonna. What is he doing? I think Pete's doing his 27th Sydney to Hobart, so he'll be on one of the yachts. He's on a smaller yacht nowadays. He does a lot of international competition. So I've got a couple of other work colleagues. They've got yachts and they get into it a bit. So I've got into it in the past. I'm sort of not so much nowadays, but I do know people in the yachting industry. So some interesting, colourful characters. Let's put it that way. Some of them can bloody drink as well. Fucking hell. I've met a few alcoholics, heavy drinkers within the yachting industry, I can tell you. Yes. And you're welcome. What do you suggest to eat after a fast? Meat, my dear, meat, and more meat. Lather yourself in meat. Yes. Keep it simple. Don't complicate things. You do not want to be raising insulin, After any fast, you do not want to have the over expression of insulin. You want it at a dose dependency from leucine and stuff like that, just for muscle protein synthesis. But you do not want to spike it too high and give yourself a hypoglycemic shock. Very, very dangerous. And if you do fasting for too long and then you eat carbohydrates, you die, like the people in the camps in Europe that were given food after they had been starving for a very long time, and they ended up dying. Don't experiment that way. Harry has in the past, very dangerously, but he's crazy sometimes and shouldn't be doing those stupid type of experiments. So do not do them, please. Be a nice child at home. Behave yourself. Yeah, it is a beautiful place, Tasmania. We have arguments with our Kiwi cousins across the pond. They think they're a bit better, but it's all, yes, they are second best. Let's put it that way. But the exaggeration coming from that part of the world is just ridiculous. You got Richard and Bart just basically telling us how great New Zealand has been up until very recently, and now they're just pissing on their own place. Even disrespectful towards our illustrious leader, or Commissar Lucinda. Lovely lady. Thanks, mate. Not a problem. Yeah, I try to keep it sensible and away from in a world gone mad. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Weird and wonderful things, notions that people believe or subscribe to or jump on bandwagons with zero proof. That's the funny thing about it. Zero proof whatsoever. Yes, you don't need proof. Just a good crackpot story. I went to Hill Street. Got some. Oh, did you? Did you leave any for me? I got plenty. My fridge is so full. I can't even fit anything else in it for the time being. So, yes. Oh, yes, I know. I told you to go to that other butcher and try and get him to sell you some fat. If you go to the midday, if you at lunchtime had left your work, went up to the butchers up in Campbell Street and asked them to basically give you some fat before they threw it out, you would be able to get a lot of the cuts. That's what you should do. You're welcome. Thanks, Shell. Appreciate it. It's nice to be welcome, to be wanted. Yeah, likewise. Merry Christmas as well to everyone. I'm hoping to do something around that period, so it'll depend. I'll do the community thing, and people can vote on it, and we'll see. Yes, so hopefully we can do something that I really want to do a Zoom thing rather than a live thing. I want people to turn up and sort of wish people Merry Christmas and that sort of stuff. I would rather that it was more centered on you guys rather than me answering things, sort of end of the year thing. Do we really want another answering session sort of thing? My personal opinion, but it's good to see you, mate. Where were you? I didn't see you on the Zoom thing. I think Paul said that you sort of had a few family things to deal with, and also congratulations. I heard you, one of your, I think your daughter got married. Congratulations, good to hear. Yes, exactly. Oh, that's okay. As I said, I heard it's all understandable. Oh, there you go. There you got your options. Anything with egg in it is yummy for Hello Kitty. Oh, I was admitted to the ER. Had a thrombosis in one of my 1-year-old stents. Yeah. They stented me again. Yeah, that can be a problem with stents. Because some of the what is it called? They've got like some sort of substance which is used to prevent clotting. but it actually sort of runs out to some extent. It's sort of like a chemical compound they use to break down the clotting, but then it does. I can't remember how many years, and then you have to sort of, and you can't replace them because otherwise you would rip the artery completely. You'd really cause a lot of internal damage. Once you've stented, it's very hard to get away from it. They usually have to put another one in and clear it out. So it's not good. Yeah, it's best to avoid those sort of things as much as possible. Yes, I've heard of a number of very troublesome stories when it comes to stenting and stent replacement and stuff like that. But yeah, luckily there was no complications, which is good to hear. Yeah. In a sense, I'm happier that I actually had bypass surgery than stenting at the time, because it's actually, yes, it is worse and you're closer to death with bypass surgery because you're so blocked, but it also meant that I avoided getting anything in there because it's got some sort of, there's like what is it called? It's got like a chemotherapeutic sort of agent built into that in order to prevent it from clotting, but it does break down over time, and then you can actually get severe clotting of the stent, so you have to sort of replace it, and that part of the artery can be weakened as well, so you need the stent. So it's like once stented, it's very hard to get away from them as well. Yeah, it's yeah, well, you can actually reduce platelet aggregation also with things like L-citrulline. You don't need those dangerous drugs, which is another option. Yeah, you're sort of locked in. Stent and then the drug. You're locked in because it will clot. It's not that. It's basically you've got the foreign metal in there that usually will create clotting factors around it. It's the reaction. The body's trying to get rid of it because it's a foreign thing. It's not supposed to be there. That's the problem. Yeah, it's scary, bloody nonsense. Yeah, and then they offered the worst type. It's even worse than statins. They suppressed it that long. Actually, PSK something 9 or whatever. Yeah, it's got that sort of. They basically inhibit so much. When they actually used them on rats in the early days, when they had them really on steroids, it killed the rats completely. So they had to temper them back quite a bit. So it's just crazy stuff. If you want dementia, that's the best way to get dementia, to lower cholesterol severely. Yeah, definitely good idea. Yep. L-citrulline, great vasodilator, great at reducing that sort of stuff as well, because it increases nitric oxide, which reduces earthing as well, reduces getting out and walking on the ground. Earthing yourself will actually reduce platelet aggregation. Really good for anti-clotting. Nothing like it. It's free. Anyway, guys, I better go. Sun's coming out again. Fantastic. And I will move on. Yes, I did exactly the opposite. Biff, and completely turned it in the other direction. I'm just glad I didn't go down the stent way and all the other stuff. So, but it's been a long journey for me as well in that regard. But yes, now I need to go, and I'll give Shell the last message. See you as well. Anyway, see you guys. Thanks for being here, and please hit the like button if you haven't, and please subscribe. I bet most of you have subscribed. Yes, so absolute nonsense. You should give him the what's his name, Dr. Diamond. He does a beautiful video on clotting factor, nothing to do with cholesterol. He pulls that whole argument apart. I'll actually introduce you next time we chat. Anyway, I'm out of here. See yous.